Nobody likes to admit it, but most of the manipulation you've suffered didn't happen because you were naive. It happened because you were predictable. While you were trying to be correct, transparent, and well-intentioned, someone on the other side was already playing an older, colder, and much more effective game. Machiavelli warned about this centuries ago. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, separates those who see the board from those who become pawns. And perhaps you've already felt this firsthand when you trusted too much, explained too much, overreacted, and paid the price later. Here's a statement that's unsettling but liberating. Manipulators don't win because they're smarter. They win because they understand human behavior better. They know when to speak, when to be silent, when to praise, when to play the victim, and when to create invisible monsters. The end justifies the means when the goal is control, advantage, and social survival. And while you're trying to be loved by everyone, someone else learns to be feared enough to never be confronted. In this video, you'll learn Machiavelli's 13 secret laws that dismantle any psychological game before it even begins. These aren't obvious tricks. They are subtle, almost invisible patterns that explain why some people are never manipulated and why others are constantly used without understanding how. If you apply just one of these laws, your approach will already change. If you understand them all, you'll never again enter a room without realizing who's trying to pull the strings. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now, not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He begins by explaining something almost no one realizes. Today, it's not just people watching you. Entire systems do it silently. Algorithms, behavioral patterns, predictable routines. Those who always act the same way become an open map. Machiavelli already warned that decisions based on real human nature require a cold reading of the environment, and the environment is now digital, social, and psychological. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, means accepting that you are being read all the time. Those who always post at the same time, always react the same way, respond too quickly or too slowly, reveal their formula. And when someone knows your formula, the end justifies the means to anticipate you. Therefore, being a ghost is not about disappearing, it's about leaving no interpretable traces. Better to be feared than loved. Here is to be unpredictable instead of comfortable. Too much appearance of virtue creates patterns, and patterns become traps. Virtù and fortuna walk hand in hand when you consciously break expectations. The game changes when you stop being predictable. He often gives a simple example. Two people at work. One responds to messages immediately, always polite, always available. The other alternates their presence, sometimes delaying, sometimes resolving quickly, sometimes delegating. The first becomes a benchmark for exploitation, the second for caution. It's not rudeness, it's the calculated use of force, including silence. Your own loyal armies begin with controlling your own behavior. If you want to apply this, start small. Vary response times, change interaction formats, avoid repeating ready-made phrases. On social media, alternate types of content. In your personal life, change predictable patterns of help. Don't explain everything. Excessive explanation is an invitation to in-depth reading. Avoiding being hated doesn't mean being too transparent. It means not becoming an easy target. The human algorithm loves consistency and uses it against you. Constant adaptability is not chaos. It's refined strategy. The mentor always emphasizes the ghost doesn't draw attention, but it controls the atmosphere of the room. It appears enough to exist and disappears enough to not be deciphered. This applies to business, relationships, digital positioning, and even family. Revealing everything too early gives away emotional ammunition. Here, Machiavelli wouldn't speak of paranoia, but of strategically reading the chessboard. The common mistake is thinking that predictability generates trust, when often it generates dependence and abuse. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve your autonomy. By becoming less legible, you force the other to move cautiously. And when the other begins to move cautiously, something curious happens. Indifference begins to weigh heavily. And this silent transition already points to the next doctrine, the one that transforms apathy into a psychological shield. It begins almost in a confidential tone. Few things destabilize someone more than not getting a reaction. Most people believe that power comes from confrontation, when, in practice, it is born from emotional control. Machiavelli already understood that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires knowing when to act and when to offer nothing. Armed apathy is not weakness, it's calculation. When you react to everything, you hand over the steering wheel. When you react to almost nothing, you force the other person to expose themselves. Better to be feared than loved here means being emotionally opaque. An appearance of excessive virtue, always understanding, always available, becomes an invitation to test limits. The grey rock doesn't provoke, doesn't explain, doesn't justify itself. It simply is, and this creates a silent discomfort in those who live for external validation. Virtue and fortuna arise when you choose not to feed into other people's games. The mentor often illustrates this with simple situations. Someone tries to provoke you in a meeting, expecting an emotional reaction. If you over-explain, you lose. If you respond aggressively, you lose too. A short, neutral, almost boring response breaks the script. I understand. Let's see. Noted. It seems like little, but it's a calculated use of force. Your own loyal armies begin within your mind, where you decide what deserves energy. To apply this in daily life, he suggests practical exercises. Reduce emotional responses per message, eliminate long justifications, replace reactions with pauses. On social media, don't respond to criticism impulsively. At work, don't engage in ego battles. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve your position. Avoiding being hated involves not humiliating the other person, just leaving them without a stage. Well-applied indifference reorganizes hierarchies without direct conflict. He emphasizes that armed apathy is not permanent coldness, but strategic selectivity. You choose when you care, and that changes everything. Manipulative people live on stimulus response. When they don't receive it, they short-circuit. Decisions based on real human nature show that whoever controls emotions controls rhythms. Constant adaptability means knowing when to switch from rock mode and when to return to being human warmth. The mistake is using empathy where it will be exploited. Here, the grey rock acts as a filter. Those who deserve access insist respectfully. Those who want control reveal themselves in frustration. And when someone starts to reveal too much, trying to elicit a reaction, a silent opportunity arises. Because deep down, every ego needs a mirror. And that's exactly what the next topic will explore. He usually begins this topic with an almost ironic warning. Most people don't want to be heard, they want to see themselves. Machiavelli already knew that decisions based on real human nature require accepting this fact without romanticizing it. The synthetic mirror creates nothing. It only reflects back to the other the image they most love to observe. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals. Here means stopping trying to convince and starting to reflect. When you validate the ego of others in the right measure, you disarm resistance. Better to be feared than loved is not about aggression, but about controlling the dynamic. The appearance of virtue, when well balanced, creates comfort. When exaggerated, it creates suspicion. The trick is to make the other believe that the idea originated in them. Virtù and fortuna align when you understand that people defend tooth and nail what they believe to be their own creation. The mirror doesn't lead, it induces. The mentor often gives a very everyday practical example. In a negotiation, instead of presenting your proposal directly, you ask questions that lead the other person to verbalize exactly what you were already thinking. What do you think would be fair? How would you resolve this if you were in my place? At this moment, ego comes into play. Calculated use of force here means letting the other person speak more than you do. Your own loyal armies are not built with orders, but with emotional commitment. If you want to apply this, practice strategic active listening. Repeat keywords the person uses. Agree with their intention before directing the outcome. The end justifies the means when the means is to avoid direct confrontation. Avoiding being hated involves never exposing the other person as manipulable. They need to leave believing they won. The synthetic mirror keeps you clean while the other person gives themselves away. He warns, however, about a crucial detail. The mirror shouldn't be too perfect. Excessive reflection becomes a caricature and arouses distrust. Constant adaptability means adjusting the degree of validation according to the profile. Insecure people need subtle reflections. Narcissists, controlled brilliance. Decisions based on real human nature show that the ego loves applause but hates feeling used. That's why you never pull the curtain completely, always leave a gray area. Machiavelli would call this strategic elegance. When done well, the other person becomes attached to the conversation, the relationship, the dynamic, without knowing exactly why. And the more they see themselves in you, the less they perceive their own exposures. At this point, something curious happens. Certain actions begin to need to be done, but never directly by you. And that's where the art of silent outsourcing comes in. He introduces this theme with a phrase that often causes discomfort. Power is not about doing, it's about making things happen without leaving fingerprints. Machiavelli already taught that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires strategic distance from unpopular acts. Those who execute directly bear the risk. Those who orchestrate reap the results. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve reputation and position. Better to be feared than loved doesn't mean being visibly cruel, but being associated with consequences. An appearance of virtue acts as a shield when difficult decisions need to be made behind the scenes. Virtù and fortuna go hand in hand when you understand that excessive exposure destroys authority. Outsourcing the dirty work isn't cowardice, it's a cold reading of the game. Avoiding being hated involves never being seen as the direct source of the damage. Those who appear clean maintain room for maneuver. The mentor often uses simple examples to make this applicable. In the professional environment, those who directly fire people become the villains. Those who adjust goals, processes, or criteria let the system decide. Calculated use of force is structural, not emotional. Self-made, loyal armies are formed by intermediaries who believe they are acting on their own behalf. To apply this, he suggests something practical. Create clear rules before conflicts arise. That way, when something happens, it's not personal, it's protocol. Decisions based on real human nature show that people more easily accept a no coming from a norm than from an individual. The common mistake is confronting head-on when the scenario calls for invisible architecture. The appearance of virtue is maintained when you point to the process, not to personal desire. Responsibility is diluted. Control remains. He makes a point of warning. Outsourcing isn't about disappearing morally, it's about repositioning yourself. Constant adaptability means knowing when to act directly and when to let the environment act for you. Those who always resolve everything personally become predictable targets. Machiavelli would understand this as strategic survival. The curious thing is that when you don't appear as the executor, you become seen as an arbiter, someone above the conflict. And this increases symbolic power. The end justifies the means when the means is to maintain intact authority. As people get used to feeling effects without seeing the hand, they begin to seek approval before acting. And at this point, a new dynamic emerges. Whoever controls what is revealed and what remains hidden controls the entire game, exactly the principle of the next topic. He usually opens this topic with a simple and uncomfortable observation. Those who are completely transparent are rarely powerful. Machiavelli already warned that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires control over what is seen and what remains hidden. The black box is not a theatrical mystery, it's an economy of information. When you reveal everything too early, you give away a strategic advantage. Better to be feared than loved. Here is to be indecipherable enough to generate caution. The appearance of virtue works best when accompanied by selective silence. Virtù and fortuna align when you understand that the curiosity of others is an asset, not a problem. Avoiding being hated involves not denying information, just not offering it freely. Those who speak little force others to fill in the gaps, and this almost always favors those who observe in silence. The mentor gives very practical examples. In meetings, those who over-explain become predictable. Those who only answer what is necessary become the point of reference. Calculated use of force means knowing when to end sentences before going too far. Loyal armies of one's own form when people feel they need to earn access. To apply this, he suggests simple habits. Don't reveal all your plans. Only disclose decisions when they are finalized. Avoid justifying personal choices. Decisions based on real human nature show that partial information generates respect, while total exposure generates intimacy, and excessive intimacy dissolves hierarchy. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve room for maneuver. The black box creates asymmetry. You know more about the other person than they know about you. And asymmetry is silent power. He emphasizes that the black box is not about coldness or explicit manipulation, but about managing access. Constant adaptability means adjusting how much you reveal according to the context and the interlocutor. Trustworthy people receive fragments. Opportunists are left with noise. Machiavelli would understand this as strategic prudence. The common mistake is confusing authenticity with unrestricted exposure. An appearance of virtue is maintained when you seem open but not decipherable. Gradually, those who live with you begin to measure their words, gestures, and requests. And when people start to regulate themselves in your presence, something interesting happens. Empathy ceases to be a spontaneous feeling and becomes an instrument, exactly the terrain of the next topic. He begins this point with a game-changing distinction. Feeling empathy is not the same as strategically demonstrating it. Machiavelli already understood that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires mastery of emotions, both one's own and others. Artificial empathy is not falsehood. It is awareness of the effect. When you react emotionally to everything, you lose ground. When you choose where and how to demonstrate understanding, you gain control of the interaction. Better to be feared than loved here means not being emotionally predictable. The appearance of virtue works as a tool when used intentionally, not impulsively. Virtù and fortuna go hand in hand when you understand that most people confuse acceptance with agreement. Avoiding being hated doesn't require absorbing others' pain, but recognizing it without committing beyond what is necessary. Strategic empathy creates bonds without creating emotional debt. The mentor often gives simple and applicable examples. In a difficult conversation, instead of saying, "I'm sorry for you," he suggests something like, "I understand why this affects you." It seems like a detail, but it changes everything. Calculated use of force is validating emotion without taking responsibility for it. Your own loyal armies are not built by solving other people's problems, but by making people feel seen. To apply this, he recommends observing patterns. Those who always ask for help rarely want a solution. They want an emotional release. Decisions based on real human nature show that controlled listening generates psychological dependence. The end justifies the means, when the means is to preserve your energy and your position. Artificial empathy allows you to welcome without getting involved, to support without committing, to listen without exposing yourself. He warns against a common mistake: confusing strategic empathy with coldness. Constant adaptability means knowing when to switch off and when to show presence. Emotionally unstable people tend to confuse genuine empathy with permission to invade boundaries. Machiavelli would see this as a failure of human interpretation. The appearance of virtue needs to be calibrated. Excess becomes an invitation to abuse. When you use empathy as a tool, the other person feels understood, but not authorized to advance. Gradually, you realize who approaches out of respect and who approaches out of emotional drain. And when this filtering happens, something curious emerges. Sometimes showing a well-placed flaw creates more trust than appearing flawless, and that's exactly what the next topic will explore. He begins this discussion by breaking a common belief. Appearing too flawless pushes people away more than it attracts them. Machiavelli already knew that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires managing perceptions, not absolute truths. Calculated failure is not a real error, it's a controlled narrative. When someone shows their humanity at the right moment, it reduces resistance and disarms distrust. Better to be feared than loved here is not about appearing fragile, but about controlling when and how to show vulnerability. An appearance of absolute virtue creates distance. Small imperfections create bridges. Virtù and fortuna align when you choose the flaw that doesn't compromise the core of your power. Avoiding being hated involves not appearing too unreachable. Strategic imperfection humanizes without weakening. The mentor often illustrates with practical examples. A leader who admits a minor mistake publicly gains credibility for tough decisions later. Calculated use of force means choosing which flaws to show and which to hide. Your own loyal armies are formed when people feel you are like them, but not the same as them. To apply this, he suggests something simple. Reveal difficulties overcome, not ongoing weaknesses. Tell stories of past stumbles, not current insecurities. Decisions based on real human nature show that trust is born from identification, not perfection. The end justifies the means when the means is to build emotional credibility. Calculated failure creates empathy without opening real openings for attack. He warns, however, that too many failures become the norm, and the norm becomes weakness. Constant adaptability means knowing when to stop exposing yourself. Machiavelli would understand this as an economy of vulnerability. An appearance of virtue remains necessary. Failure enters only as seasoning. When well applied, people lower their guard, talk more, trust more. And the more they trust, the more dependent they become on your validation. At this point, you realize something curious. It's not just what you show, but how you respond that creates psychological value. And this almost invisible control of time paves the way for the next law. He begins this point with an observation that seems simple, but changes everything. Those who always respond quickly communicate a lack of value, not efficiency. Machiavelli already understood that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires mastery of the rhythm of interactions. Dopamine withdrawal is not an ego game, it's basic psychological engineering. When you become predictable in your response time, you lose symbolic power. Better to be feared than loved here is to be awaited, not immediately accessible. The appearance of virtue manifests as education and clarity, not as constant urgency. Virtù and fortuna align when you understand that the human brain associates waiting with importance. Avoiding being hated involves not ignoring, simply not reacting impulsively. Temporary silence creates emotional weight where there was previously banality. The mentor often explains this with everyday examples. Think of someone who always responds immediately. You don't value the response, you just wait. Now someone who responds with quality, but at the right time, generates anticipation. Calculated use of force is about managing expectations, not disappearing. Your own loyal armies are built when people feel that your attention is earned, not guaranteed. To apply this, he suggests clear practices. Avoid responding to messages outside of the hours you have defined for yourself. Alternate quick responses with strategic pauses. Never respond to emotional issues in the heat of the moment. Decisions based on real human nature show that dopamine comes from controlled uncertainty. The end justifies the means when the means is to recover the symbolic value of your presence. He makes an important point. Abstinence is not total absence. Constant adaptability is knowing when to accelerate and when to decelerate. Machiavelli would understand this as political time management. The appearance of virtue is maintained when, in responding, you deliver clarity and direction, not anxiety. Gradually, people begin to adjust their behavior to align with your rhythm. They expect more, ask for less, choose better. And when the rhythm changes, the hierarchy changes along with it. At this point, something interesting happens. Entire groups begin to organize themselves around common tensions, almost always directed towards an external focus. And that is where the strength of the next principle is born. He presents this law with disconcerting frankness. Groups organize themselves faster through shared fear than through abstract ideals. Machiavelli already observed that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, recognizes the need for a pole of tension. The necessary monster doesn't need to be real, it needs to be plausible. Better to be feared than loved here is to be the guardian who points out the risk and offers direction. The appearance of virtue is maintained when the threat seems external, never created by you. Virtù and fortuna align when the leader channels scattered anxieties towards a common focus. Avoiding being hated involves never confusing oneself with the monster. The end justifies the means when the means is cohesion. Divided people fight among themselves. United people confront something. The mentor provides practical, everyday examples. In teams, internal conflicts decrease when there is a clear objective against a defined problem, a tight deadline, an aggressive competitor, an ambitious goal. Calculated use of force means naming the challenge without personalizing the enemy. Your own loyal armies are built when everyone knows what they are fighting against. To apply this, he suggests simple actions. Transform diffuse complaints into specific problems. Name the obstacle. Draw up a visible plan of action. Decisions based on real human nature show that people need a narrative to act. The common mistake is trying to unite through love when direction is lacking. The appearance of virtue remains when you call for solutions, not hatred. The group strengthens itself without realizing the engineering behind it. He warns against the risk of excess. Too many monsters create paranoia. Poorly defined monsters create chaos. Constant adaptability means calibrating the threat according to the moment. Machiavelli would understand this as maintaining political equilibrium. When well applied, the necessary monster diminishes individual egos and strengthens collective identity. Gradually, you become the point of reference, the mediator between danger and stability. And when the group trusts you to interpret reality, a delicate opportunity arises. Praise can open doors, but the right attack at the right moment redefines positions, exactly the dynamic of the next topic. He introduces this principle with an almost uncomfortable observation. Direct attack is rarely the most effective. Machiavelli already made it clear that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires emotional preparation of the terrain. The kiss of Judas is not impulsive betrayal, it is a strategic sequence. Before any confrontation, praise lowers defenses, creates a sense of security, and suspends internal alerts. Better to be feared than loved, here, is knowing that respect is born from elegant unpredictability. The appearance of virtue functions as social anesthesia. Virtu and fortuna align when the other does not perceive the exact moment in which they have lost an advantage. Avoiding being hated involves not humiliating. The attack comes wrapped in recognition. The end justifies the means when the means is to neutralize resistance without open war. The mentor usually gives very clear examples. In professional feedback, starting by acknowledging effort creates a real opening for tough corrections later. Calculated use of force means choosing the right praise, neither exaggerated nor generic. Loyal armies of support are maintained when people feel seen before being corrected. To apply this, he suggests simple practices. Praise something concrete before pointing out flaws. Acknowledge intention before correcting execution. Validate the role before repositioning limits. Decisions based on real human nature show that the ego accepts pain better when it is preceded by validation. The common mistake is attacking without emotional preparation. An appearance of virtue protects you while the adjustment takes place. He points out a crucial detail. Praise needs to be genuine enough not to sound mechanical. Constant adaptability means adjusting the tone according to the interlocutor's profile. Machiavelli would understand this as a keen reading of human character. When done well, the other person leaves the conversation confused, not hurt, but repositioned. And this preserves their image while redefining hierarchies. Gradually, people begin to fear the attack less and the silence that precedes it more. And when you realize that words shape perceptions, you understand something even greater. Whoever controls the narrative controls the perceived reality, exactly the territory of the next principle. He begins this discussion by making clear something that almost no one accepts at first. Facts matter less than the story told about them. Machiavelli already understood that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, is above all the management of perception. Manipulating reality doesn't create blatant lies, it rearranges perspectives. Better to be feared than loved, here, is to be recognized as a point of reference for interpretation. An appearance of virtue is maintained when you seem only to explain what happened. Virtu and fortuna align when you arrive first at the narrative. Avoiding being hated involves not denying facts but framing them. The end justifies the means when the means is to prevent others from telling your story for you. Whoever controls the narrative decides who was wrong, who was right, and who was a victim. The mentor often uses everyday examples to make this applicable. Two identical mistakes can have opposite impacts depending on the narrative. A delay becomes disorganization or strategic prioritization, depending on the story. Calculated use of force is choosing words that guide interpretation. Your own loyal armies are formed when the group repeats your version without realizing it. To apply this, he suggests simple practices. Speak up first when something goes wrong, name the problem before someone else labels it, associate failures with learning and decisions. Decisions based on real human nature show that people trust more those who appear calm and coherent. An appearance of virtue is sustained when you take control without dramatizing. Those who hesitate lose the frame. He warns that manipulating reality isn't about shouting louder, it's about being clearer beforehand. Constant adaptability means adjusting the narrative according to the audience. Machiavelli would understand this as mastery of political language. When you define the vocabulary, you define the debate. Gradually, people start using your words, your terms, your categories. And when that happens, you've already won without confrontation. The curious thing is that at this stage, you realize something essential. Maintaining a fixed identity starts to become a risk, because narrative predictability also becomes a prison. And that's exactly why the next principle requires a constant change of skin. He opens this principle with a disturbing truth. A rigid identity is psychological comfort, not strategy. Machiavelli already made it clear that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires continuous reading of the environment. The chameleon skin is not falsehood, it is intelligent survival. Better to be feared than loved, here is never to be completely deciphered. The appearance of virtue changes according to the scenario, without the core of power being exposed. Virtù and fortuna walk hand in hand when you understand that the world punishes those who cling to a single version of themselves. Avoiding being hated involves not confronting other identities. You adjust, observe, and move forward. The end justifies the means when the means is to remain relevant in changing environments. Those who do not adapt become easy targets for exclusion. The mentor often explains this with simple examples. In a formal group, you adopt a restrained posture. In another, direct language. It's not inconsistency, it's social reading. Calculated use of force means speaking the language of the environment without revealing your essence. Your own loyal armies are built when different people feel that you understand them. To apply this, he suggests clear practices. Observe before taking a position. Adapt your tone, vocabulary, and rhythm according to the context. Avoid declaring absolute convictions in unstable environments. Decisions based on real human nature show that those who fit in effortlessly gain ground. An appearance of virtue remains when you seem natural in any scenario. The common mistake is confusing authenticity with behavioral rigidity. He warns, however, about an essential point. Adapting is not disappearing. Constant adaptability requires an invisible center, not an empty mask. Machiavelli would understand this as strategic flexibility with a clear objective. When you change your skin without attachment, the environment begins to adjust to you, not the other way around. Gradually, your presence becomes functional in any context, and this generates something powerful. You begin to be evaluated by results, not by method. And when the method ceases to matter, only what truly determines positions, respect, and power remains. The final result, amoral and cold, which the next principle exposes without makeup. He begins this principle with a truth that almost no one likes to admit aloud. The world rewards results, not intentions. Machiavelli already made it clear that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires courage to face it without moral pretense. An immoral result does not mean an absence of personal ethics, but an understanding of how the external game works. Better to be feared than loved here is to be recognized as someone who delivers on their promises. The appearance of virtue remains useful, but should never hinder execution. Virtù and fortuna go hand in hand when you understand that the end justifies the means, provided the end is clear, measurable, and relevant. Avoiding being hated involves not flaunting methods, only presenting effects, those who question the paths less when the numbers speak for themselves. Mentors often make this very practical. At work, nobody asks how you solved the problem when it's solved, only the person who solved it. Calculated use of force means choosing the most effective method, not the prettiest one. Your own loyal armies are built when people trust that you know how to get there, even without explaining every step. To apply this, he suggests something straightforward. Define clear metrics before acting, focus on what moves the needle, cut actions that generate comfort but not results. Decisions based on real human nature show that people respect those who deliver consistency. The common mistake is sacrificing impact to preserve image. The appearance of virtue protects, but results sustain. He warns, however, about a subtle point. Results without political analysis generate silent enemies. Constant adaptability means adjusting the method without losing sight of the objective. Machiavelli would understand this as lucid pragmatism. When you deliver results repeatedly, you begin to dictate rules, even without announcing them. Gradually, the environment reorganizes itself around you. People align, competitors retreat, criticism diminishes. And the most curious thing, the less you talk about how you did it, the more inevitable the result seems. At that point, the whole cycle closes, because whoever understands these laws ceases to be manipulated and begins to see the whole game from above. Now, the responsibility shifts. Everything you've heard here only has real value if it starts to appear in your daily decisions, in the silences you choose, in the answers you postpone, in the praise you measure, and in the information you decide not to share. From today onward, every interaction becomes a test. Are you reacting impulsively or acting with strategic analysis? Are you trying to be loved or learning to avoid being hated while preserving power? Are you playing with ideals or with reality as it is? Ask yourself with brutal honesty, who controls the pace of my conversations? Who defines the narratives when something goes wrong? In what situations do I give more than I should? Attention, empathy, explanations, energy, and most importantly, who is reaping the rewards while I'm still worried about appearing correct? Machiavelli made it clear that decisions based on real human nature liberate those who stop being predictable. Virtù and fortuna favor those who learn to adapt without guilt and to act without asking for emotional permission. If this content has opened your eyes, the next step is simple, but requires courage. Start applying one law at a time and observe how the environment changes around you. People change their tone, retreat, test less, and show more respect. And if you want to continue developing this cold, strategic, and practical understanding of human power without illusions and without naive moralism, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Here, you don't learn to manipulate people. You learn to never be manipulated again.